Howdy, and welcome back. Part 2 of the interview from last time. If you haven't seen that, I got a link down below to part 1. And before we get on with the interview, once again, thanks to Steve Lamott, Steve Lamott Photography at Steve O's Photo Cafe on Facebook. So here we go, part 2 of the interview.
Okay, Mike, many of the viewers saw, but are wondering a little bit about who is Dee and how did the two of you start hiking together?
Dee. Hi, Dee. Dee started, I knew about her, back up. There's a group, a Facebook group for the trail, American Discovery Trail. And so I had seen her postings, and she happened to be walking from West Coast to East Coast when I was doing it at the same time. So when I got to Pueblo, I noticed that she had been in Colorado Springs. So I got in touch with her, and we started texting back and forth. And she wasn't ready to leave Colorado Springs because she was dealing with some things at that time. So I told her, look, as I go ahead, I'll let you know where some good campsites are alongside the road or wherever. And she said, good, thank you very much, that'd be very helpful. So as I kept going through eastern Colorado, I noticed that she finally had started taking off. And then I noticed that she was getting closer and closer and closer to me, and go, boy, she's going pretty fast. And then once I got past the Kansas border, then she had jumped ahead of me. So it turned out that she was doing a combination of hiking and then hitchhiking to finish her day. So once she got ahead of me, I figured, okay, well, that's that with that. Then when I got into Missouri, I just happened to text her and say, hey, how you doing? And she said, well, I'm doing fine. I'm in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. And Pleasant Hill, I'm going to be there tomorrow. So she said, well, why don't we have lunch? So we had lunch at Subway. And that's where we also met Dorothy. And then from there, I took off from Pleasant Hill. She stayed behind. Then I got to Boonville, my halfway point. And she texted me and said, hey, I was wondering if we could hike maybe for a couple days together or so. So I waited an extra day in Boonville, and then she caught up, and then we hiked along the Missouri River to St. Louis together. And then I had to fly back to the funeral for a couple days. She went ahead to Southern Illinois. I caught up with her there. And then we hiked into Indiana, and then she went to visit some friends for about a week and a half. I continued on into Ohio. I happened to text her again a couple weeks later and said, hey, how you doing? Well, I'm in Mount Orab, Ohio. Mount Orab, I'm in Mount Orab, Ohio. This little teeny town. So I was on the south side, she was on the north side. So we hitched up that next morning and then hiked for a few days. She injured her knee, and then she had to end up getting off trail and then finishing it with the help of somebody who would just shuttle her between points. Then she walked some and then rode some. But she made it to the end.
On that same topic, who is Dave and how did the two of you cross paths?
So again, the same thing as I heard of him on the page there. So I saw that he was getting closer because he's going westbound, I was going eastbound. And it happened that we sort of knew where each other was, and we just happened to accidentally meet each other as I was pulling out of Boonville. And so that's how he came about. Now, something about Dave, he was doing the southern section of the American Discovery Trail, and now he is actually doing the full northern section of the American Discovery Trail. So if you want to watch his journey, you can go to davewhitson.com, and actually DaveXUSA on Facebook, and he's walking from Delaware to California. So DaveXUSA on Facebook, davewhitson.com, and then for Dee, you can go to deegoesfromtrailtotrail.com. You can see her posts there as well.
This is a very general question, very open-ended question, I guess I should say. But where would you usually stay?
Where would I stay?
Yeah.
Park, side of the road, cemeteries, underneath the culvert of highways, out on BLM land out west, some farmland in Kansas, ranch land in Kansas, in the forests, wherever I could find a place, and then usually I take a day off each week and stay in a motel. Yeah, campsites every now and then.
You had mentioned about when you were going between your longest point and how much water you had to carry, but in general, how much did your pack weigh when you were just going from town to town to town?
So after Pueblo, my pack weight was generally in the mid-20s, low to mid-20s. Yeah.
And how about pairs of boots? Did you wear a lot of pairs of boots? Did you go
yeah,
through one?
I went through 4 pairs, so about one pair every 1,000 miles. Yeah.
How about clothing? How many changes of clothes did you carry?
I just wore what I had on my back, and then I had a pair of short pants in my pack, as well as an extra t-shirt and an extra pair of socks. And you got to keep it light. So people might ask, well, what happens if you get wet? Well, you dry them out and keep going. And you have good rain gear.
Now, one thing that was very interesting in the videos was there was one place where you crossed a bridge that looked like it was ready to fall apart. Why did you decide to go that way?
The old Iron Bridge, Abandoned Woods State Park, Indiana. I wanted to go that way for a shortcut, my famous shortcuts, because it was kind of a warm day and I wanted to get to this restaurant that had a nice view. The Overlook restaurant in Leavenworth, Indiana, had a nice view of the Ohio River, and I wanted to make sure I got there so I could get a nice sunset view. And so instead of walking around 3 or 4 miles, I just did the shortcut. It worked. Anybody of you going on that bridge, stay on the south side. The south side of the bridge is the way you cross over it.
Now, in many of the videos, you talked about the tent.
The tent.
And the tent, it was like you had a competition going how many nights you would not use that tent.
Yeah.
How did that whole thing aspire?
I had no thoughts about that in the beginning of the trip, but it turned out that for the first part of the trip, the western section, I only had to use it. I'm a cowboy camper. I've done cowboy camping all my life. Rarely used a tent. So whenever I would camp, I would just lay out under the stars. So on this trip, I just used the tent when I had to, whether it was raining or threatening rain or it was real windy. So between California and Pueblo, Colorado, I used my tent only a total of 8 times. And then at that point it became, I'm not going to use the tent. Let's see if I can keep the record going. So it got kind of dicey at the end, where it was pretty moist at night, but I did it. Last time I used a tent was up in the Rockies. No, it was in the mountains on the other side of the Sangre de Cristos. Yeah.
Now, I think one of the most interesting questions is, were there a lot of differences between the people you met from state to state to state?
A general answer is everybody was nice. Again, people would tell me before I started, oh, you be careful because there's a lot of crazy people out there. But by and large, well, not by and large, but as a rule, everybody was nice on the trip. What I did notice is the different reactions to my message as I went across. There was more temporal reactions in the western part and more of a spiritual reaction as I got to Kansas and further along. But everyone was nice.
And on your walk, you experienced a lot of different weather. What was probably the coldest and the hottest that you had experienced along the way?
Coldest would be up in the Rockies, low 20s, upper teens, and then 20s along the C&O Canal, West Virginia, and even got down to about 9 degrees one night in Washington, D.C. But I chickened out and I stayed in a motel. Hottest parts were Kansas. Kansas, I had some days of above 100, and then Evansville, Indiana, it got to high 90s with humidity, so it was like 105 heat index.
So one of the questions that we talked about, did you listen to music or did you listen to audiobooks? Did you have any emotional highs and lows, like any depression, anything hit you while you were walking, being alone so much?
No, like I said, I'm good in my own skin, and people have asked me that question before, and I always point back to, there was a movie, I think it was a Robert De Niro movie, and he was sitting in a bar, and a girl was talking to him, and his character, he was a loner type of character, and so this girl asked him in the bar, well, don't you ever get lonely? And his answer was, lonely? No. Alone? Yes. So I always remembered that as a pretty clever answer, and so that's that's basically what it is.
All right. And did you have somebody edit your videos when you're going along, or?
No, actually, I did it all myself. Some people, when they're on these long distance hikes, they got somebody back home doing it. But I just edited it. Took the videos with my phone, and then when I get to a town, just edit them and post them up.
What software did you use?
The software was Kinemaster. It's an app for both Android and iPhone. So Kinemaster, and then for the still photos, I use Snapseed.
So we talked about the trail, and at times you would point and say, we're going to go that way, we'll be over that mountain soon. What did you use for your navigation when you were keeping track of exactly where you were going?
Navigation, the app that I used was GaiaGPS, and it's a nice app because you can actually download maps onto the phone for those times when you didn't have a signal, so that you had it all locally. And you download GPX tracks. You can download different layers, whether it's Forest Service layers, motor vehicle use maps, topography, water features, things like that. A pretty good program.
And when you were out in the middle of nowhere at times and you were doing your hikes and walks all through the nation, did you carry any emergency beacon?
Nah, who needs that stuff? I don't need no stinking emergency beacon. No, I did not use one.
If you didn't make it, you would have needed a beacon.
Oh, there you go.
Let me ask you this. Would you do it again? Literally, would you do it again?
Would I do it again? Yeah, I think I would. As you probably know, I've mentioned that I'll probably do an Upper Peninsula, Michigan hike down to Key West. And I think I'm going to probably be doing it in the next few months. A coast-to-coast walk. I don't know. It's not beyond the realm of saying yes or no, but so who knows?
Aren't there people usually are out there that do it 5 or 6 times?
Well, I came across a guy in West Virginia who he was going westbound. This, he said, was his 6th time across country, but he was combination of walking and hitchhiking.
Interesting.
That was his life.
So I know at times you had mentioned, and I found it so interesting, you had talked about kind of self-discovery. Is that the wrong word to use or the right word to use? What did you learn about yourself?
What did I learn? I don't know if I can say that I learned anything, with the exception of I cemented the knowledge of myself, in that I know that, like I said, I'm okay in my own skin. I'm okay being on my own. If anything, maybe I can say that I learned to be listening even more to the sound of silence, to the sound of God. So I guess those would be the 2 takeaways.
Probably a question most people have, because you hiked across America, and when you come back, you lost your footing as far as a house here and this, that, and the other thing. What have you been doing since you got back?
There's a thing called post-trail depression, and if you if you watch videos of long distance hikers or read about them or talk to them or whatever, a lot of them will say they just got into a terrible funk after they got done with their long distance hike. I know that for the 3, maybe 4 weeks after I was finished, I mean, I literally felt like a fish out of water, so to speak. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I grow up. Didn't know what I was going to do when I got back home, wherever home was going to be. But that went quickly away for me. So what have I been doing since I've been back? Nothing. Is that part of the process? I don't know. But I mean, I was fortunate enough that I have enough cash that I can just do nothing, and I'm not, oh no. And it's also fortunate too that I had somebody at my church who's allowing me to stay on some land out in a nice peace and quiet up in the mountains out here. So it's kind of helping me to keep reflecting, I guess.
Now we're getting down to the last few questions. One of them is, did your family or friends try to persuade you not to do this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they'd say, "Are you crazy?" In fact, there were even some, as I started on the journey, they were just so, I don't know if the word is sad or afraid to the point of crying, that he's not going to come back alive. But that's typical, I think, with anybody that does something like this.
All right, the final question I'm sure everybody's going to ask is there a book in the future? Are you going to write a book?
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because people asked me that in the beginning, "You going to write a book?" And I said, "No, forget it." But as I would continue to go across almost every single place, "You going to write a book? You going to write a book? You going to write a book?" So I guess that's somebody telling me to write a book, right? So stay tuned, I guess.
Well, I got to tell you, this was a very, very interesting time for me to interview you, to ask you the questions that probably many of the viewers sent in. I feel very honored.
Well,
and I think it's amazing what you did.
Well, I always tell people it's just one step at a time. And anybody, you all can do it. Just one step at a time, one day at a time. That's all it is.
Well, thanks, Mike. We appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. Okay, well, that was the final part of the interview for the Walk Across America. Hope you liked it. If I missed any questions or if you thought of any other questions, just put them down there in the comments. And also make sure, subscribe, click the bell, click on all,
and give it a thumbs up.
and see you next time.